I'm Jean-Gabriel from Banking SDK. It moved fast. So Banking SDK is an aggregation platform. It's a tool which is sold as Docker container to connect TPPs to banks. And that's it. Thank you.
And we have now Peter as well.
Hi, I'm Peter. Yeah, because you said so. Yeah, so I'm Peter. I'm one of the TPPs using the services of Identity. To be clear, we are a small team, and I will be telling you today a bit more about the process we have gone through to become a licensed payment institution, and all the necessary hurdles that it brought. And yeah, so well, I won't disclose everything before it's my turn to talk. So let's wait for the other people to join, and yes, then we can start.
So we have also Cédric. I don't know if you can, we can test as well. And we hear you well, so that's good. Thank you, Cédric. So we're going to start now, but before that, you've seen we are here in Silver Square Bailly, where FIRE, our hub, digital finance hub, is hosted. And yeah, all our members are more than welcome to join this hub. And we would like to really warmly thank Silver Square for this absolutely gorgeous room. So, and thanks also all the partners who helped us today. So I'm going to first give the floor to Mark. I'm going to lean up the clicker. Here you go.
Thank you.
Here we go.
All right, is the presentation showing? Or...
I share my screen.
Okay. Yeah. This one.
We should try to.
Yeah, we should try to do each other's presentation. All right, so we don't really see the chat anymore, so I hope you all see the presentation. I guess it's fine. A small disclaimer before the beginning of the presentation. All you're going to see, and at the bottom of every slide, I keep repeating it, is based really on what we see on our platform, meaning that it's basically the kind of traffic we see from our customers, and it does not reflect at all an actual market trend, because we don't have all TPPs as customers, so it's only obviously a very small subset of what you can expect getting data that would be consolidated between different aggregators. I'll come back on what it means exactly on the different topics that I present. So for those of you who were at the meeting that we did together with Tink and also Banking SDK in September 14 of last year, we already presented some numbers as Identity. I would say same way Tink presented also numbers with their experience. We saw that there was a 620% growth from really number of accounts being linked through the different customers we have from January to September. We did a split of B2C, B2B usage, but overall, the percentage of usage of Big Four banks and mid-tier banks was kind of close, but at least close enough not to have a completely different trend there. We discussed also a little bit the quality of PSD2 supported banks that improved. So this is something we saw last year and we see that keeps improving. And by that, what we mean is the support we get as TPPs from banks. So that doesn't mean there aren't any problems, but at least we saw indeed a very good and encouraging increase of the quality of PSD2 support teams. We explained also a few of the small issues that we had, but I'm not going to elaborate too much on those right now because I'm going to come back to them later. So now that the year is over, we can say that through January to December, we actually saw an 11-fold increase of traffic. Now, all of that needs to be put in perspective. Obviously, 2019, in our case, was also the year we actually started really pushing more marketing, getting more customers, etc. So most of our customers, the biggest of our customer base, started in January to consume data on PSD2. So it's only obvious that the number increased quite a lot in the first year. So it's not that we expect this to be the same this year. It would be great. We have more modest expectations, I would say, for this year. But still, we see that the current trends, if we only look at the January numbers, is still quite encouraging. So if I go to the next slide now, I actually did a breakdown of the different quarters in last year and the projected growth by quarter for the upcoming quarter, I would say. So as I was saying, a lot of customers started consuming data beginning of January. So we saw almost a doubling of the traffic in 3 months. Then we had, I would say, a common enemy that showed up, which everybody knows as COVID-19. So although we didn't really see a big impact of COVID on what we were doing, we saw a decrease during that quarter, a decrease of the growth. We also had customers that delayed some of their campaigns because they didn't really know. So there was uncertainty that we actually felt in the numbers. But then we saw that as soon as I would say the measures were a little bit less drastic, then growth actually picked up again, because a lot of people also woke up, including also on our TPP product Ponto. We had a lot of demand from companies to digitalize. So that is something that we saw also happening, I would say, because of COVID in a way, although it's a positive thing, but that there was really a huge increase in the demand to digitalize financial flows. And that includes, of course, access to account information, issuing payments automatically, and the like. And then at the end of the year, we also expected a small slowdown because of December and the holidays in all. So we had a smaller growth. But overall, we can say, and that's something we already said in the last presentation we did in September last year, that we see that the traffic on our platform doubles every 4 months on average. That's what we see. And we see from the January trends, which is starting quite heavy for us, that we can expect the same type of growth for this quarter at least. So we'll see what happens in the next quarters. And again, that doesn't reflect a market trend. That's just what happens on our platform. If we have a new customer launching next month, then that's going to impact our numbers, obviously. So it doesn't mean that we're talking about the market as a whole. I think the only organism that has that kind of information is probably the National Bank with the regulatory reporting, but that's not something we have as an aggregator. But what we saw really is that something happened in 2020 that, in a way, ignited the whole open banking PSD2 story. It's still not that big, but we see that it increases at a steady pace, at least for us. Now, next slide. Okay, so the clicker doesn't work anymore. All right, so maybe you can remove my germs from it.
I will do that.
Yes, so just a little breakout, and also starting from the numbers that we had last time as well, just to show you a little bit of the evolution we saw. Instead of splitting B2C, B2B, I actually consolidated everything in one chart because I didn't want to overload you with different numbers. But overall, in September, we saw that the big 4 banks in Belgium were accounting for 81% of the number of accounts that were consumed through our platform. And we see that number decreases to 73% as of, I would say, yesterday, mainly because the mid-tier banks and the neobanks have gotten a little bit more of the market share. Now, in a way, it makes sense to us because a lot of people just got on the bandwagon of open banking and PSD2 to connect an account from a big bank, and now we see that we have more and more customers that are jumping on that train as well. And those customers are sometimes from smaller banks. Also, you need to understand that sometimes for some smaller banks in Belgium, we didn't necessarily have those banks available on the platform beginning of last year. So our reach has been also evolving in the meantime. But now we have a clearer picture of the breakout of the, I would say, the market share on AI, at least for what we're seeing right now. Next slide. And now I also wanted to show you the breakout in the Netherlands. I just included Belgium and Netherlands, could have included Luxembourg, France, and the other countries we are in, but I think that Belgium and Netherlands are really the countries where we do most of our traffic. So, so this is, it's almost similar to the actual market share of the banks in the case of the Netherlands. So you have the three big ones, obviously, and then you have almost, it's all at 8% for the others, but it's actually 7.6 and blah, blah, blah. So there's small differences, but all in all, the market share is similar for all the other ones. Now, I want to move into another topic that's going to maybe be a little bit more tricky, I would say. So next slide. I want to talk about API reliability. And that's something we did not necessarily talk about before. But I want to talk a little bit more about what we consider reliability and also how we describe it. Now, an API, a PSD2 API, is a technical thing. It's a communication protocol. And sometimes there are errors that happen when you call this API. And there are errors that are justified, errors that make sense and that are a part of the specification and part of what we need to deal with. But there are also sometimes unexpected errors, and that's what we call in IT jargon the 500 errors. And so it's really an error message that says, hey, something went wrong. We don't know what went wrong, but something went wrong. And we base our calculation of the reliability not just on the number of those unexpected errors, but also how many customers are impacted. Because I could have, I don't know, 100 customers that generate 90% of the 500 errors at the bank, for instance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the API as a whole is bad or is unreliable. So we need to also look at not just the number of errors or when they occur, but also how many customers are really impacted? How many customers are impacted by that degradation of service? And so instead of looking really at the number of errors, we actually talk about number of accounts at this specific bank in total and number of customers impacted or number of accounts impacted. I chose the number of customers impacted in the formula because usually we have a little more than one account per customer, and by customer I mean PSU. In this case, it's about 1.3 accounts, bank accounts per PSU. But when a PSU has 2 or 3 accounts linked to a TPP or to one of our products, it doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, or 3 accounts that doesn't work. For them, it's the whole thing that's broken. So that's why I'm picking this one. I know it's a little bit like subtracting apples from oranges, but this is just a test formula, obviously. It doesn't give the perfect picture. And also, we only take into account the customer impacted after we retry. Because sometimes, I know Einstein defined it as the definition of insanity, trying the same thing and expecting different results. But in the case of APIs, PSD2 APIs, sometimes retrying works. Also because we call sometimes infrastructures that are complex with multiple components. Some of those components are duplicated and things like that. So it could be that the first time you call the API, it goes to a service that is broken, but the second time you call it, it goes to another service that is okay. So the retry mechanism is something that we have in our product. And so the only calculation we have is how many customers are impacted after retry. So it means that potentially there are more errors and more problems than the ones that I'm going to use here. So now you're going to see a breakdown of the banks. Okay, so I was going to try to explain it before, not to shock people, but okay. It's a breakdown of the different banks. I put most of the Belgian banks, the Dutch banks, and the neobanks, because I didn't want to put a huge matrix of all the banks we have, but just to give you an idea of how it compares. Now, bear in mind that, again, it strongly depends on the type of customers that consume data through us or how we consume data. In our case, we also have a lot of B2B traffic, so corporate accounts traffic, which are today still some of the most problematic on the PSD2 API. So it could be that Banking SDK has a completely different impression of those APIs, or Tink has a different impression of those APIs. So it's only with our focal point. That's something I want to make very clear. So it's in no way a ranking of the banks that should be published somewhere. It's really just what is our feedback and our impression on those APIs. So now we can move to the next slide, and I hope nobody's going to be angry. So fortunately, nobody's in the red, and by red we mean that we see less than 70% reliability. Now, what does it mean? Again, it's not a precise number that you can play around with, but it's more, do we expect that when a customer wants to link an account to that bank, we're going to have problems? And I would say the darker you are on that chart, the more we expect a customer support request, contacting the bank, and that kind of things. It also, and especially in the case of ING, for instance, and Belfius, we're talking about banks where we have a lot of traffic. So obviously, the more traffic we have on those, then the probability of having problems increases as well. But that doesn't mean that in some of the big four, we have the same issues. For instance, at BNP, we have other types of issues, but once the linking is done, then we don't necessarily see errors. So again, it's not a ranking of which APIs is best. It's really just about a technical point of view on the reliability. It is in no way a business, I would say, a functional assessment of it. It's really about the technical reliability and how easy or hard it is for us as a technical entity, I would say, to deal with those APIs. Anybody in yellow or green is usually something that is good for us. Orange it means a little bit more trouble, but fortunately nobody's in the red. Some of those banks are close to the red, but nobody's in the red from our little formula. And again, I want to stress that again, that's only our data set. So please don't just take this as a market trend, okay? Well, Triodos BE, that's a very good question. We have indeed Triodos BE in the list of banks that we consume, but we don't have, in my opinion, I don't have enough data to come up with a ranking there.
You only have a few clients.
Yes, so Okioki has some clients there. Yeah, I only included the banks for which I think it's safe to say that those results are true. I'm not going to come up with a shaky result from other banks, but maybe in the next few months, we're going to have more than a few hundred accounts on those banks, and we're going to start including them in the calculation. Now, we still have a few missing RTS requirements. We only have 30% of Belgian banks, last slide, so only 30% of Belgian banks that have bulk payment available. It's a little bit more than 50% in the Netherlands, so we're really hoping that this will ramp up, especially for our B2B customers. The NBB also asked the banks to put the account holder information in the API. So far, the only one we've seen with that is Newbie. That may come as surprising, but yeah, that's. I think their API is quite new as well, so I think they included the last requirements from the NBB into it. We're only starting to work on the Newbie API, so I don't really know the reliability yet. There's still issues with additional mandates needed, and we still have a lot of confusion because some banks are saying that our service Ponto is illegal because it's not called Isabel NB. So there's a lot of really weird conversations sometimes with the bank support channels. It's a little bit weird, but that's it. All right, and then a couple more points, but I think you'll be able to read the slide later.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mark. So I'm going to now give the floor to our usual MC, Toon van Aert, who's stuck on the road. So I'm going to say goodbye to you and leave the floor to him.
So we're going to continue. So first of all, Mark, big thanks for all the sharing all the great numbers. It's
Something is happening at least.
yeah, but if you look at it, for those who've been following this for a long time, and I'm really happy to see you all here and online, with the banks not being compliant last year, and now we see real transactions going on. We've come a long way. Yeah? So,
Payment is picking up, but not yet in large numbers that compete to cards, and there's still hiccups with payments. So.
Let's take the positive part that we hear about the hockey stick in growth. We see
Right now,
the virus every day, and then I hear that you guys also double every 4 months.
It's the case today. So crossing my fingers, there's no wood on this chair.
Okay. So I would say driving over here, I do see the economy is picking up surprisingly. I've been working a lot from home and remote, so I'm a little bit shocked to see how much traffic we have on the roads in Brussels nowadays. So, so let's hope that the rest of the economy picks up again, so these transactions go up as well. Yeah. Now I would like to move to our first speaker, who's joined remote, Sinewe, for you to answer some questions, because you are from Odoo. And we all know Odoo as one of the major Belgian success ERP player, growing at an incredible rate as well. So maybe can you tell us a little bit more about the financial services at Odoo?
Yeah, well, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me. It's really nice to see you all. So at Odoo, there are a couple of applications that businesses integrate in order to facilitate their payments. And also their accounting. So these applications, we call them invoice, we call them sales, and we call it accounting. And we have other suite of applications that can be integrated for businesses to ease other processes, just like, for instance, support. Sometimes you have people who have subscriptions where they want to sell, let's say, hours of services. And also we can go towards something more like HR and payroll, or even your e-commerce. And we can accept payments many different ways, depending on the needs of the business. We don't do something specifically. We have quite a large scope. And depending on the needs, we usually have about 50 applications for you to choose from. And you can also develop on top of it, because we're open source, in case you need to make a modification. Hello, can you hear me?
I hope you get this question, although when I see your screen disappear, you still hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you, yeah.
The hiccups of working remote, we all know them. Now, you're famous for the incredible growth, as I said before. We're all waiting for that IPO to happen in in one of the upcoming years, to see that as the Belgian unicorn success story which we need more. But how do you manage scaling your business in such a regulated world, too, if you look at finance and hooking your customers to that world?
So what Odoo is doing is, Odoo doesn't do the payment. Odoo is not a payment company. It's not a fintech. It's not regulated. What Odoo is doing is that it's connecting with PSPs, so payment service providers such as ADN, Stripe, let's say the big fintechs on the block, let me say it like this way. And as far as for accounting, which I worked with especially a lot last year, we have integrations with fintechs that permit us to have access to the account information of the client. But all of this is done through a third party. It is not Odoo that takes care of all this sensitive information. It's really the third party application. So we're not really regulated because all of the risk, is provided by the fintech.
Yeah, so the Odoo platform connects to a third party that has
the aggregators, exactly.
Regular aggregators, and that's where you work from. You take only the necessary information inside the platform that it needs from a transaction. Okay.
Absolutely, and then and then we focus really on making sure that the tools that the client is using are powerful, and they respond to what the people and the market wants, the businesses need.
Now, we just had Mark from Isabel explain us how they see this happening. Now, you have customers using open banking apps and thus PSD2 underneath as a legal framework to get access to their accounts. Can you share us a little bit like what is their feedback about? Are they aware of everything happening under the hood, or did they take it for granted? Or like, can you share some?
The clients, or would you say Odoo? Just for me to understand.
Well, let's start with the clients. What do you get as feedback from clients?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Clients everywhere around the world, especially now, and especially me, I do a lot of accounting, and I have to train sometimes a company to understand the applications, to implement it to other clients. They all want this. They all want to be able to connect their bank account and do their reconciliation for accounting faster. And everybody wants it. Everybody wants it. It's really a need.
And then if you look at Odoo, your own experience in connecting to those third parties, how smooth is it?
So I usually will be the client that connects to that third party, or they will have someone that follows them in the implementation, but it's always the client who has to do it. So the client has to connect through let's say the Ponto or the Saltedge or whichever aggregator it is, and then they have to ask their banks, and they connect. Yesterday, I checked a bit the support. There are some problems, but I was actually surprised that there are not as many tickets in support as I would have thought. So apparently it goes pretty okay, but yes, eventually there are for sure issues. Not everything is perfect.
Can you name one issue without naming the customer? Something that you signed those tickets that you were like, how come that's still happening?
It was a problem with the API. The client was just saying how when they were getting some errors, all the synchronization was going well, but there was like an error from the bank for a synchronization, and what the support told the client basically is, hey, that's not really us. We need to talk to the aggregator, and the aggregator needs to fix this with the bank. So it's kind of like you have many different parties, and so yeah, I think it was an issue with the aggregator or with the bank. We don't really know those details because it is the aggregator who I think manages this relationship with the bank.
But I think it's chosen in the era. Many software developers will run into similar issues, like where did the issue originate from? Is it a bank? Is it the IT? Is it the third-party aggregating, or in the format between Odoo and that third party? So again, coming back to the API quality, we definitely need some way to track that through, right?
Yeah, and indeed we have some Odoo customers using Ponto to link their account. We do have problems. We do have the issues that I explained. It's not really a surprise, and sometimes indeed there's confusion also for the end customer about who they need to talk to. I would say that in the case of Ponto, we're a little bit in a PayPal model. So indeed, the customer needs to have to see Ponto and have a relationship like this. But yeah, sometimes then the customer says, yeah, but my synchronization works with Ponto, doesn't work with Odoo. Or sometimes it's the other way around. They say everything seems fine in Odoo, but not at Ponto. So yeah, we have to fix those issues. We are in direct contact with also the customer support of Odoo to do these things actually and to solve these issues. But it does add an extra intermediary, especially for non-regulated parties. Yeah, so that's the way it is indeed.
Okay, well, thanks for that. If there's no questions from the audience, and we'll have Q&A at the end, so you can queue your questions up for the Q&A part. We're gonna move on with Jean-Gab, because you prepared slides, and I always find it great that we are a small community, but you have in a certain way competitors and partners sitting next to each other. Well, it means we have a healthy ecosystem, yeah. So I would ask you to explain what Banking SDK do. The openness of it, and run through your slides. You have 7 minutes, so go.
Thank you. So yes, maybe next slide. So Banking SDK, yes, I think that you understand what we do, as we do the same as Ivanity, maybe in a different way, technical way. I wanted to share some facts with you because yes, it's time, it's the new year, so there is new information.
Yeah.
We opened up an office in Portugal. We are now connected to more than 1,000 banks, with which all those banks are connected in 16 countries, and we have a 90% coverage in Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Austria, and UK. So that's it for the presentation of the company right now, because it changed a lot since the few months.
Yeah, so it's impressive because I remember the low number of banks last year, and now you're over 1,000. So what helped you to jump so quickly?
We are focused, and we do that every day, every weekend, every night. So. Yeah.
But so it's a matter for you to write connectors to the proprietary format or the different flavors that they implemented in their framework. So that's keeping an eye. Okay, great.
So you can go to the next slide. I don't know if people, the audience see.
Yeah, they see the slides.
So as Mark said, there is still a lot of issues. RTS compliance is not there right now, but I will not deep dive into that. I think that Mark did explain correctly what's happening and the reliability of the APIs. If you just remember, I did a small video 1 year ago about the fact that we don't have the counterparty for some banks. Just it took one year and maybe 40 months, I guess, to have those counterparty data in the bank statement. So that's a point I wanted to highlight.
Do you think that the fact that the regulator, the national bank, was threatening with a fine helped to finally get them to release it, or you say no?
Yeah, but that's a point I will address maybe later. But yes, indeed, it does play, of course. Payment initiation is working fine now. We can initiate payments through our APIs. It's not doing it the best way, but at least it works. I just also wanted to highlight a little story which happened a few days ago. Thank you. We had to face the fact that with one bank, we were not able anymore to do the authentication mechanism. And we just get notification from the our system. We checked what's happening with our system. Then we checked the API of the banks, and we finally checked the documentation of the developer portal. And we noticed that the implementation of the API just changed, and we didn't saw it. That's an important point because in the mind of the guys at the bank, of course, we did some exchange in the emails about the RTS and the fact that they have 3 months to run, that there are changes, stuff like that. In his mind, everything was correct because he just pushed a news on the website in September saying that, hey guys, we will change the API in the coming months. And okay, that means that if a TTP like OkiOki is connected to 1,000 bank, OkiOki has to connect to the developer portal of 1,000 bank just to understand if there are new changes. Of course, he will not do it. Mark will do it for him. But it's not a way of working which is it's a way of working which is compliant, but it's not a positive mindset. And maybe that's the point I want to highlight in this presentation. For the moment, my feeling is that we are more in a frustration-oriented open banking. We didn't succeed in creating something which is, I would say, a European enthusiasm around open banking. You have 3 players. You have the startups, the banks, and the NCA, so the National Bank in Belgium. Startup and fintechs, of course, those guys are highly motivated. They want to start a new business. They have new revenue streams and stuff like that. So those guys are highly open about open banking. The banks, it's not the case. And most of the banks, it's not the case. They didn't succeed in generating new business on top of that, and they are just focused on the fact that they don't want to share their data. That's, I will take the same precaution as Mark did, so it's just my feeling. It's not a generic feeling, it's just my feeling. The national, the NTA, they have to play a role there, which is in a technical ecosystem that it's very difficult for them to address. Because, of course, there is the legal part that the NCA can address successfully, but the technical part is very difficult for them because they have to ensure that the APIs are compliant, they are still up and running, very well functioning and stuff like that. But they don't have the technical background and the technical infrastructure to check everything out of this. So that leads to, I would say, three kinds of frustration. You have the technical frustration from the startups, which are unable to connect to their bank account and to connect their PSU to the bank account. You have the business frustration of the banks, which cannot generate revenues and don't see a business model in that open banking. And you have the in-between frustration, I would say, for the NCA, which is the fact that the NCA is in between the startups and the TPPs, which complains about the APIs of the banks, and the banks doesn't want to improve so fast. I just noticed that the Dutch bank, I would say that because I invite everybody to connect to the developer portal, but those guys successfully embraced the open banking, and they provide a lot of APIs, which they sell. So if you want to check if an IBAN is correct, for example, you can call an API and you pay a few cents for it, but it does work. So they take the positive side of open banking. How is it working outside of EU? That's a screenshot of what's happening in UK, for example. If a bank just changed the way its API is working, you receive a notification from openbanking.org.uk saying, hey guys, in 3 months, that bank, HSBC in this case, is going to change its way the API is working.
To which channel you get a notification?
So you get a notification every day of, sorry?
It's an email that you get?
Yeah, it's an email.
It's an email. Yeah. So that's, I was trying to link that, so that's the emails you get. So
yeah,
you say, we don't want to go and look on their website and screen them and get notified. You want to get them sending it to you.
That's one data maybe only for those that are part of Open Banking UK, which means almost every bank.
Yeah.
But indeed, it's an organization they created for that to help TPPs as well, which is.
And I just want to show that there are solutions.
Yeah.
The other email I printed is just a daily status of who is up and down, and just the explanation of why that bank just failed for a few moments during the day.
Maybe for those who are new to open banking, because in Belgium we use open banking for PSD2 integration, but in the UK, open banking is also the name of the organization and name of the standard, right? So it's much more united from in the country formerly part of Europe. They clearly went their own way very early there. Good.
So I wanted to point some facts, starting maybe by figures. It's the top 21 of the fintechs, the unicorn fintechs worldwide. Of course, we understand clearly that #1 is US. It's quite. I was quite surprised to see Brazil as second one. Do you know, guys, how many fintechs, unicorn fintechs, there are in UK, for example?
Well, I see the next slide.
Sorry,
we have the preview. You're giving it away.
So we have. That's okay.
So it's 10. For that managed to get the preview.
I go to the next slide directly. But it's strange that in UK you have 10 unicorns, and for the rest of Europe you have 10 unicorns. Yeah. So that country succeeded to create 10 unicorns, while the rest of Europe succeeded to create.
But it's the London ecosystem, which used to be, we can be very clear about it, they were the center of the fintech EU for a long time.
There is a lot of stuff there which might explain that, but maybe the way they manage open banking does play a role also. The first European country in the top 21 is position 14 in Sweden, and in the top 21 we have only 4 European countries. So I wanted to put a sentence which is maybe a little bit hard, but I don't think that the way we implemented PSD2 today just succeed in creating unicorns. And I will come back to that later. How is it going abroad? I see that the maps are not displayed, but that's not an issue.
People use their imagination, so it's fine. They know the world map maps. I see Australia, I see Africa, so go ahead.
What I want to highlight is that the most recent open banking system, which are open worldwide, in Australia, in Brazil, and Canada, which is going to start soon, They all base their system on the UK version of the open banking. And then they keep everything and they take everything which is good in that open banking and they enlarge that to banks, but also energy sector, insurance sector, and so on. So I had a lot of talks in the last 2 weeks with people, part of the boards of open banking in Brazil and Australia. They never spoke about PSD2. So it's always open banking UK, which is the reference, and now open banking in Australia, which become the reference. So we have to be realistic. Nobody cares about PSD2 outside of Europe. That's another point. So my conclusion about all of this is that do we have the worst developer that it takes 40 months to add 2 fields in API? No. Of course, no. The issue is that, as you remember, we have 3 parties implied. We have the startups, the banks, and the NCAs. But just 1 out of the 3 found a positive stuff in the open banking. What's missing is that the fact the 2 others didn't find a positive point in the open banking. And we have to find a way for the banks and for the NCA to be also positive. We are now speaking about Open Finance 2022. That's cool. But my feeling is that we cannot build that on the PSD2 stack. We have to just think again and how to embrace and join all the parties into the system.
Thanks for that. I think that this is generating quite some questions that we will address in the Q&A part. I'm going to speed up a little bit and move to Cédric Neff from Digitil. I like the fact that you gave us the Glover's perspective. It's good to know that open banking is sort of the default standard, so that makes things easier. But maybe Cédric, so first of all, can you quickly present yourself and Digitil and then and your link to PSD2 and open banking? Okay, great. This session starts to feel like a self-help group for those who try to comply and make services on top of it. So maybe you want to stand up, I'm Cédric, and then tell us what is bothering you or some of the experiences that you ran into. And if you look at the coverage, we have certain percentages, coverage and growth. Can you say what that looks like for your company and your customers? So it is helping your growth, right? The fact that okay. And so if you could make one last suggestion, what would that be? Okay, great. Thanks for that. Stay tuned for the Q&A. Our last speaker, Peter from Okioki, maybe you can tell us a little bit on how you are providing account tech, connecting the administration with account information, and how you help entrepreneurs. So go ahead.
Indeed, yeah. So I think I was very happy when Sino had said earlier on that reconciliation is something that a lot of these clients are asking for. And exactly that's what we are doing with Okioki. Okioki is a digital assistant for an entrepreneur that helps them in getting their documents together. And we use the PSD2 connection, so the data from the transactions, as a sort of source of truth to actually know what kind of documents are needed to be complete when he has to submit his files to the accountant at the end of the quarter or the end of the month, depending on what VAT submission you would follow. So our assistant actually is proactive in the sense that it connects with the ecosystem of the entrepreneur. It reads or follows the mailbox, if it follows its cloud storage, and it gets the documents there, and we automatically match them with transactions. If the transaction is there, then we just send it through to the accountant so he can handle it himself. Which is nice because accountants have been struggling a lot with getting the right documents at the right time, and they always find themselves at the end of the quarter struggling to get everything submitted in time. So that's what we do.
Okay, great. And to which extent was PSD2 and open banking important to make this product work?
It was actually our trigger, to be clear, because we used to work in another company before. We are 3 co-founders. We worked for a lot of financial institutions, and we saw that PSD2 was coming. And we felt like, okay, if you want to be an entrepreneur, what kind of topic would you choose? And actually, PSD2 was for us one of the triggers to choose for it. And we decided to go forward, to jump forward. Also because the problem of getting the files to your accountant was a problem that we had felt ourselves in the past.
We all feel that pain, that's for sure. But so you were also among those entrepreneurs that were hindered by the fact that the banks weren't fully compliant as everybody hoped that is that. And so you were delayed in being able to offer your product to many companies. So you needed full coverage for that.
Yes. Indeed. So we started off with the idea to actually become an AISP and PISP combined fintech. Yeah. But and luckily for us, actually we had a lot of discussions with national banks. National Bank, they are trying their best to help small players like us.
Okay, that's nice
to achieve. And they immediately said to us, wait a second, if you want to do PISP, one, there's a lot of requirements that you have to fulfill to become PISP, and secondly, quality of the APIs isn't there yet. So if we can suggest you to choose a path, then maybe it's better to start with accounting.
So they think with the entrepreneur. That's nice to know.
That's
how tough was it to get that license? You have the account.
So we have the account information license, and well, it's actually the same request process that you have to go through for each of them. And if you look at the document that the National Bank provides you, it's quite intimidating. Tell us the intimidating parts and how you overcame it.
No, everybody listen to this.
Well, it's from an entrepreneur's perspective, and if you're small, you're an engineer who has an idea and you want to build something, then you don't think about compliance and risk and audit and all the other requirements that are there and that are imposed by National Bank or by the PSD2 directive, actually, to make sure that when you grow as a financial player, that you don't impact the financial system. So for us, it was really daunting because you needed to know about all those topics about IT security and data security. Okay, we knew about it because we worked for big banks in the past, but when it came to compliance and stuff, then we really had to talk to people to understand what it was about. And the important thing as well, entrepreneurs or startups, usually they start with an idea and they move quickly and they shift and they change focus. Yeah. But if you want to be an entrepreneur using PSD2, you can't do that because you have to know upfront what the path will be that you're going to follow, because they require you to describe the path you want to follow. So actually, so you have to make sure that if you do this, you actually need to know where you want to go. And the impact it has on your organization, it can cripple you, because the requirements are so big.
What's the capital requirement? Because that's the good news, right? You don't need to raise million to be allowed to.
No, indeed. So we are still self-funded, so we're still in bootstrap mode. So that's good. But the capital requirement for AISP, the capital requirement is 0. So you can actually build an account information service without making sure that you have a certain amount of money to the side. When it comes to payment initiation, and that's for our case, I don't know, I think it's depending on the amount of transactions you do, but in our case, it would be like a 75,000 euro capital requirement that would be there, has to be there all the time to make sure that you can
fulfill the obligations. And that would be up to how many transactions, you know?
I don't know by heart.
The limit? We'll come back to everybody with the number for the.
I don't have that exactly, but it can go very high.
Okay, very good. Okay, I would like to invite everybody to start firing questions through the chat. We might even try to pull some of you live if you want that, and the platform allows for it. But start with typing your questions, and in the meantime, while we wait for you all to come up with interesting questions for everybody in this panel that is here in the Silver Square Bailly, and I'll take the opportunity before you all start logging out to thank Silver Square and to remind everybody that the Fire Hub, which is an initiative, a combination of FinTech Belgium together with Silver Square that will soon open near the central station, is still open for you. If you look for flexible offices, and let's all hope that we can get united as a community physically in the near future, that you start looking at that to unite with your team and have like the flexibility of having an office on the go if you are not working from home. Second practical announcement, while I wait for those questions, I'm going to keep talking until somebody asks a question. We have our next Thursday event on crypto assets, so people that are interested in that, or those that have been buying Dogecoins or whatever was the hype of the week, they might want to check out next week what we have to talk about that. We get the legal view from the experts of White & Case. So again, 12 o'clock next Thursday, you can plan your lunch break and hopefully learn as you did today. And with that, I'm looking forward to the questions. If not, I'm going to be asking the questions. But I think with all the people in the audience here, I see we have 36 left here. There must be some questions for the people that we have here. So this is your opportunity. You just address them and I'll ask it for you and we'll get the plenary answer. And we're going to run 5 minutes longer, so it can be even a question to more than one person present in this session. So I'm going to make good use of this time. Haha. Yes, the event link will be in there. Thank you. That doesn't count as a question, Senior. You're supposed to take them, not add them on top of it. But so. Having said that, so I'm going to start with the entrepreneur, still having a bootstrap company. So first of all, it's impressive because you've had to survive a long time waiting for everything. So what are your expectations for the months to come? Are you going to need to raise capital to move it forward? So you're in the plan of raising capital.
We're not started yet, but we expect that we will have to do it. Our financial plan would allow us to do it in bootstrap mode until we get to break even, if we are able to get all the clients in that we need. So if you want to sign up, go ahead.
Entrepreneur pitching to those with too much money on the other side of the webcam. Please contact Peter. He's raising, so that's good to know.
So well, depending on how fast the growth we can achieve, then we probably will need a capital injection.
Okay.
Which will be limited, I assume.
Okay, that's nice to see. I know, Cedric, you already raised quite some capital. Can you give us an amount, the public part of how much you raised so far with the DGT? Okay, we have a question from Johannes Vermeer, who's asking, so for the authorizations, you still need to do that through the bank tools. Is there any improvements? So I will start with you, Mark. How do you see this? Maybe explain that cumbersome tasks that the banks are requiring the end customer when they give the consent to share the access to their bank accounts to the TTP, how that works.
Okay, so we're talking about SCA here.
So that's strong customer authentication for those who are new to the
I'm going to assume we're talking about that part, and here it's specifically about payments, but indeed the strong customer authentication is not something that currently is delegated to the TPP. And by that we mean, if you can compare, and that's not to preach for our own chapel, but that's what the 4 banks have done with Isabel 6, or at least Isabel as a whole 25 years ago. They have delegated that SCA to a third party, a contracting third party. So it means that with the Isabel card, you can sign payments in Isabel. There's no signature at the bank side. But PSD2 is actually not working like that. It's the other way around. So everything happens at the bank. It means that the methods to authenticate and to sign are provided by the banks themselves. So indeed, there's always a redirection, or in some cases in Germany, an embedded flow, and I'm not going to detail that, but let's talk about redirection. When you want to sign a payment, you get redirected to your bank and then back. In a similar way that you will do it when you have an online payment that requires you to do a 3D secure with your card reader and that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's less ugly, fortunately, but it means that you completely lose the customer in the flow, yes. And then you hope for them to come back. And then you have, when they go to the bank, they have multiple choices. And I'm going to answer to the next question about this.
That's nice, thanks.
So, if you end up at the bank page, then you can choose a multiple ways to authenticate or to sign. Sometimes it's the card reader. Sometimes, and the one that comes to mind is AXA, for instance. There's an in-app signature way where you can enter your PIN code, or it's me, or sometimes it's also the Isabel card. So we actually redirect customers to the bank, and then they sign what actually a product that we develop in our team. But anyway, but that's the way it works. So
it's
the bank provides
Is there a way for you to catch up? So you pass on the customer to the bank's authentication, and then you lose them; they don't come back.
Yes, of course, it happens. Sometimes the app of the bank just crashes or breaks, and then the link is broken, so they cannot be redirected back to you. Sometimes they see a blank page on some browsers, so there's a lot of technical problems that can occur when you put them in.
I'm going to pass the question on to Jean-Gab. How do you see that happening?
Just to complete what Mark said, there is also a lot of improvement in terms of UX, because sometimes people don't go back to the application, the originating application, just because they are lost in the process on the bank side.
Yeah.
Because they have to take their card, their client ID, put all the stuff in together, confirm the payment, and just bring back the card reader. So it might be very complicated. So that's what I was saying in my slides. There is a lot of place for improvement in that.
And again, about a strong customer authentication, there's a question about It's Me. What about mobile identity? Is that already allowed as a way to confirm your consent to the TTP?
What do you mean by mobile?
So there's a question. If It's Me, which is the Belgian player, of course,
you can use It's Me.
You can use it. Strong enough.
Yes. Yeah, It's Me is available in most banks today.
Okay. Okay. If there's questions for Udo, unfortunately, a speaker had to leave. We will forward them, so you can still ask them. I will put them in the wrap up. I would say we have time for one more question online. So
I see a question of Alisa for Ibanity. The answer is no. So that's a quick one.
Okay.
And aren't ASPSPs supposed to allow PSU to grant access to several accounts at once? Okay, so that's one of the tricky problems of the way some banks have implemented the, I would say the token that combines that relationship between TPP, PSU, and bank. For some of them, you need to introduce an IBAN. You cannot introduce multiple IBANs. You can introduce only one IBAN up front, and the link is valid only for one bank account. In other even trickier scenarios, if you have multiple products in your company, which is the case at Isabel Group and probably the case in every bank in Europe, if you have two products consuming PSD2 APIs through the same license, which you cannot get two licenses for the same companies anyway, so you use the same certificate, what's going to happen is that if you link your accounts to one product, 2, 3 accounts to a product, it works. But then if you want to link to the other product, then it's going to work, but the access on the previous product is going to be cancelled. So that's a huge issue for larger TPPs, I would say, or TPPs that want, even smaller TPPs that want to develop multiple services. That's a problem in the implementation of the banks.
Maybe follow-up question on the excellent question from Frédéric Gugeux to the ones providing as a TTP. So Cédric, I'm going to start with you, Peter. You have business customers. So let's take a typical BV in Belgium with 2 or 3 founders, like in your case. One of them ask access. I know that in the early days, the bank said, no, we need all 3 of them to consent to the data. Yes. How is that working today?
It's still the case if your account requires consent, so it depends on your statute.
The bylaws.
The bylaws, indeed. At this moment, we still have a few issues with that because we work through accountancy agencies as well. One of them is specialized in not-for-profit organizations.
So you have a long list, all the directors.
So, one of the people was in the session was one of my contacts at one of the big banks who has had a lot of requests from me about how to fix the fact that the mandates were not correct. And
this process is still not fixed.
So that in that process today, it means this customer, the person trying to get it done gives consent, and then 9 others have to somehow also get involved and get an invitation.
And the bad thing is that the customer just gets a message you can't connect your bank account.
They don't even know why.
So there's not even a structured message to you okay. I'm gonna go to Cédric. You confirm you have the same issues with that? Getting the consent from, I would say, multi-person mandated legal entities? So that's one of the loud calls here. Please, banks, get this process fixed if we want for PSD to become like a household name and people understand, it's really easy to share my bank account details, make the process of the mandating to who gets access to your account not so cumbersome as it is today. Great. I'm going to call everybody to join the networking part of this event, which is fully online. I want to thank our speakers for uniting here at Silver Square on premise and for those of us following us remote. You've seen the platform through the BZBoot platform. You can now move to the networking part. We all invite you to do that and reach out to your friends, colleagues that you haven't seen physically in a time. We try to mimic the experience of a good networking. So enjoy your lunch. Have a nice one-on-ones with the friends and colleagues and competitors that you have missed. And we look forward to you next Thursday on the crypto assets. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, we have to go to our lab.
Hello everyone. I invite you to put your micro and your camera on, like that you can come live. And come live and enjoy the networking part. We have all speakers who are going to take the computer to join us as well. Just the time to be in a safe place, COVID safe. We have Alice. Hello, Alice. I can see you.
Hi. Can you hear me?
You go perfectly. Hello, Flora. Hello, Peter. Hello, Johannes. Great to see you there. We have Patricia as well. Hello, Patricia. Yes, we have Alisa. There we go. I think we can start maybe to introduce everyone. If we have... Hello, Jean-François.
Hello.
Hello, François.
Hi.
You have to.
Okay, still Dominique. Maybe I can suggest maybe to start with Florent. Introduce yourself. Florent, we can't hear you. Could you hear us? I see that you are trying to... We can't hear you.
Okay.
Maybe we can then start with Johannes in the meantime.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, so just introducing myself. I'm Johannes, co-founder of POM. We're also very active in payments. Started the company in 2014, so 6.5 years ago already. And I haven't had the chance yet to go to the hairdresser.
One of many.
Great, thank you. Pat, hello. Maybe you can introduce yourself, Patricia?
Yeah, of course.
We know that we know you, but maybe not everyone.
Yeah, thank you. As vice president of this fine fintech community, I've been around here for quite some years now, and lately I've been very busy. In fact, we are setting up a first Benelux event. First team will be InsurTech, and we will organize it together with Holland FinTech and Loft in Luxembourg. So looking forward to this cooperation and like a bit for our members, like look at the neighbors, maybe expand markets. And so I'm looking forward to this new hopefully new series of events coming soon. And that's then taking the digital as an advantage, because cross borders is very convenient nowadays.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We need to fix with that. Great, thank you. Lisa, I don't know if you can hear us because you...
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Hello, Alisa.
Hello. Not yet, I guess.
Perfect. We can see you and hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Alisa. I'm working for Page Personnel Micropage, and I'm specifically recruiting for the banking and financial services. So if you are looking for your next employee, or if you are just looking for your next role, feel free to get in contact.
Great. Thank you, Alisa.
Thank you.
Hello, Jean-François.
Hello, Jean-François from Vedis Technologies. RegTech, I was more there to just interesting. I am not really working with PST2 or other stuff. I'm a member of the board of Intel Belgium.
Yeah, by the way.
I'm representing the RegTech vertical, ambassador of it, as Patricia is our ambassador for the InsurTech vertical.
By the way, maybe hello, Alice. You can introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. I think that everyone knows me or about. So I'm the general manager of FinTech Belgium. And yeah, I'm glad it took us a bit of time to reactivate the meetups this year because we were, sorting out all the digital side of it all. And but here we are back, and I'm really happy for that.
Thank you. Let's move to François.
Hi, François de Witte, FDW Consult. Have been involved in open banking and PSD2 by interest also for 9 months, which I spent with Ibanity. Since then, more or less more active in treasury, but also following closely payments and open banking and PSD2. Also for my more academic activities, I'm teaching on these matters at Febelfin Academy and also at University of Lille about these developments in Luxembourg.
Great, thank you. And very active into the FinTech Belgium ecosystem as well and community. I'm always very happy to see you doing our networking session. Let's go to Dominique.
Hello, everyone. Dominique, founder of one of the two founders of Twiki, started in 2013, specialized in payment solutions for recurrent customers.
Thank you, Dominique. Then we have Jean-Gabriel. You have already met during the this meetup, so maybe we'll come back to Jean-Gabriel later. There we go. Maybe we can stop to our favorite MC.
So I'm. My name is Toon, and I will ask you all if you're okay that we take a screenshot of this session. So I'm asking your consent. If you don't want your consent, then you should now cut your video. You should all put your hair like me, put it really nice because it's been a while that you were seen in public. Thank you very much. And so without further, thank you, Mark, for doing that. Much better now. And without further ado, we're gonna take a screenshot in 1, 2, 3, and we'll do one where you're all very happy and working from home. So another one. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Good. We'll put that online in a few minutes. So that's again part of our community trying to show that we're alive. You should join us. We're having these sessions while we're all working remote. So
if I can ask, I don't know if anyone wants to have like a conversation with one of the speakers. We can indeed split this room into smaller groups so that you can actually have like maybe a more constructive chats than with, I don't know how many we are, but quite a lot. So raise your hand if you want to make little groups or if you prefer to stay like this.
Okay, to stay
raise
like
your hand
this.
to stay like this?
Yes.
Okay. We will just finish maybe with the presentation with Jean-Christophe and Florent. Like that, we know everyone before we start that.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Jean-Christophe Verkouten from a law firm Simon Brown that most of you already know.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Sorry?
Can you speak a little bit louder?
I'm going to speak a bit louder, yes. So I was just saying I'm a lawyer at Simon Brown law firm. Part of the digital finance team, so we're working a lot with payment institutions, and at the moment I'm also spending a lot of time on my other passion, which is actually legal tech, and trying to find new ways to provide services to clients in a more innovative and direct way to do it.
Super. So you have a good start with FinTech Belgium then.
Indeed.
Thank you. Let's try again, Florent. If your mic works.
Yes, my mic should be.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. So I'm Florent Barly. I'm working for Area 42. We are the innovation hub of Credando. So I'm interested in PSD2 and specifically we look at mainly B2B application, and I was quite interested to see where we stand in the maturity to build a new service in the B2B space, leveraging on PSD2. Unfortunately, I kind of see that we are not there yet, but that's the beginning of another debate.
Yes.
Maybe if I can ask a first question because you are providing all sorts of other ecosystems with the platform, right? Are any of them coming to you with a request? How can we connect your bank accounts, or is this not something that's bottom up a request from those doing trading?
Not yet in that side. It's still us who are like thinking of what we can build and how can we mitigate trade risk by leveraging on some of the PSD2 features. But we are not yet at a stage where our either the I would say the startup in the ecosystem or the people we are already building things for are really asking for it, I would say.
Maybe continue that open question to everybody in this session. What would interest me, like this is not a demand market yet. People are being made aware. You could, or I heard you can connect your bank account. What could we all do together to make it clear and to generate demand from the end customer? Is some of you have marketing campaigns planned, or you see other ways which we join efforts there, or ask others to do it for us? Any ideas on that? Peter, I see. Is that you putting up your hand or just sweating at the? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm. Okay. So typically, we shouldn't look at as engineers. Here's a framework. We have to look at the real end user need. Maybe Peter, you want to react on that? How do you generate demand from the accountants or the
Yeah. So I think for us, it needs we go through the accountant. So mainly at this moment, so we talk to accountants, and they, well, on first hand, they have had COVID, which also made them see that they needed to digitalize the input they had. So for us, that's a big trigger to have people join Okioki, because it's the way their accountant asks them to deliver their pieces together. On the other hand, indeed, people don't care about PSD2 because and that's what happens now with the implementation we have through Ivanity, is that the integration is seamless. So people just they start from Okioki, they click on a button to go to the bank, they enter their bank details, and they give consent, and they come back to our application, and it's one flow. And that's a big advantage. So they don't care about the underlying technology, but they do care about being closer to the data they want to
follow-up question on the cost for that, because you have a Coda box, and then which is also part of Isabel, which was the old way to share with, and many accountants were reselling that to their end partners, but at a certain cost. How do they compare to each other? Or are any customers asking about that in the accounting world?
The accountants are asking about that a lot, because they pay for the Coda. In some cases they pay for the Coda files, sometimes they don't. I don't know how they do it, but I'll need to talk to Mark about that. So they ask us about whether they can switch off the Coda feed with the transaction data that we have. But to be clear, the data set that Coda has is much richer, because they also have the informational messages that are in your statements, which is something that PSD2 does not require the banks to disclose via the PSD2 channel.
I'm going to move this to Mark, who's going to enlighten us on what is extra in Coda Box, which could be a reason for them not to lose all the customers overnight to the Vanity offering.
No. This is a topic that is that we get very often, to be honest, and I think that it starts by making the distinction between bank account statements and account information. So the statements, so the Coda, they have a legal, I would say, there's something legal about the coda, right? So this is something you can value as being an official bank statement from your bank. And this is something indeed that you get at a specific frequency. It can be end of the day, you can get intraday coda and all that. This is also a format that was created at the same time Isabel Group was created 25 years ago. And we all know how it is to deal with coda. It's a 200-page specification that was, of course, implemented not exactly the same way in all the banks. So that's one thing. But it does come straight from a CAMT or an MT format, which means that you're going to get everything you can, I would say, or everything the bank has about that transaction. So it is indeed richer. That's a fact. Why is there still a difference between CODA and what you get in PSD2? I don't know. But what I can tell you also from what we were doing before connecting only on PSD2 APIs, which we were doing through reverse engineering before, I can tell you that in some cases, the data that the servers of the banks were sending to the mobile API or the mobile app of the bank was not as good as people think. It was usually unstructured, messy data that was just being shown as such in the screen of the phone. Sometimes it was actually, for the technical ones, HTML code that was being brought back from the API and straight to the mobile API. So I think that at a lower level in their infrastructure, they probably have that data, but with the lasagna that they have in the different banks, I think there's a lot of things happening. And depending on where the bank actually connects the PSD2 API, they can provide better or worse account information. So there's still work to be done there to reach the same level of quality, which means that there are some use cases where indeed CODA might still be better. For accountants, so really for accountants, it makes probably more sense to keep using CODA because they're used to it, but would argue in some cases, PSD2 is more than enough for accounting as well. For payment reconciliation, really just invoice reconciliation, yeah, PSD2 is probably more than enough as well. So it really depends on the use case you're doing. Now, when it comes to pricing, because that was, I think, the initial question, we have, and we also have that in Ponto, we have either a direct invoicing model, which means the customer pays for it, same for CODA, and the customer can pay for CODA. But sometimes we have partners that say, I don't want my customer to pay, you or me, I want to offer it for free. And so we have a third-party payer model, I would say, that can be enabled, but only through partnerships. So that's why in some cases there's the customer pays, and in some cases they don't. In the case of CODA, for instance, if the customer pays, it's because the accountant didn't want to pay for it and didn't want to invoice it back to their customers. So again, completely, it's really just a contractual thing. Yeah, that's all I guess I have to say about this.
Okay, great. I want to point everybody to the fact that you can actually put up your hand. You can raise your hand, which is at the top of your screen on the right side. So if you want to ask a question, it's probably easier that you raise your virtual hand in there, and I will try to pass the word to you when I see those hands coming. If not, we'll just go on because I find it very interesting, everything that's being said there, but I don't want to be the one continuing to ask the question. So if you want to address somebody else, raise your hand and we'll take it from there. But it's nice, Cedric, that you're pushing lawyers to become entrepreneurs. I like that. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and I would also add that Coda is only Belgian, so PSD2 is European. So yeah, that's also one of the big limitations of Coda, I would say. So there are accountants with customers in other countries that, I mean, if they can do it in other countries without Coda, why can't we? So I agree with you. There's still a cultural thing behind the Coda and legacy thing.
Okay, we're gonna wake you up
with the advantage that it's
gonna
usually. Sorry. But with the benefit that usually it's retrievable in computer systems. But in fact, for the computer systems and ERP, the most important thing is that AIS would come in a kind of generic format like CAMT 0553, MT940 or something like that.
Okay, now Francois, you're deep down into those technical matters. I think it would help if you put those acronyms in the chat so we can all look them up to make sure that we got them right and that we all are enlightened with what's playing around in the banks from a formatting perspective. So thanks for raising our knowledge about those on the banking side. Dominique, I know you've been managing mandates for a long time, which is the core business of Tricky, your company. You heard about the difficulties of getting access to payments and mandates. How do you manage that part?
For the moment, we don't use anything about PSD2. We're looking at it, but it doesn't give a solution for the handling of direct debits, for the follow-up of direct debits. So that's why we stay a bit away for the moment of that. There are use cases where you could use it, and we're investigating that together with some of our customers. But it's not really. It's really limited to a couple of very specific use cases where you would say, okay, I'm gonna launch a mandate, and I want at the same time I want to know exactly the status of the account and is he trustworthy, and then it could add some added value. But we don't see a lot of demand for the moment on that. So I think now everyone is a bit struggling about integrations and how to get systems working together, because we see that now it's really popping up. Everyone is looking for integrations about payments and direct debits, but they don't go a lot further for the moment with those questions. But yeah, as a fintech, that's why I'm also in these calls, because I know that there are opportunities. So, but there's not really a demand from customer side.
Okay, so that's interesting. Well, Cedric, you wanted to take your hands down when you're done, so we can get a little bit of an overview there. But so, Dominique, I guess you did both the question and the answer here. So we move to Cedric. Go ahead.
I raised my hand to say goodbye to everyone because I just have a sales call now.
Very good to know. Bye-bye. And all those who want to leave, we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Huh?
Yeah, with a beer, I hope.
You'll be the last man and woman standing. I feel it. So start leaving so we can wrap this up. It's going to get more and more interesting with the more people leaving. So you're going to have to balance that part. See you. Bye, Dominique.
See you, Dominique.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. And are customers aware of that cost if the mandate fails? Is somebody informs them about that? Wow. Okay. Good. Thanks for adding that to the discussion. Anybody else has horror stories like this of unexpected costs being added when you try to work PSD2? Open question again to you, Cedric, or others. Peter, have you come across that with the accountants? As we learned from Mark before, sometimes they charge, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you see the gain of time, which is more than the cost of a quota.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is, and that's why we are automating a lot of things, is the fact that people tend to forget to pay certain invoices, and that cost is something that we try to fix. And I think it's the same thing. But in the case of the standing orders, as Cedric explained, it's a different type of transaction, where you also have to I think Cedric's point is clear. So if you are doing that, then it's a good way using PSD2 to actually validate whether or not you will be getting your money right away. And also, to be clear, on our roadmap, the integration with services like Recover or Unpaid is also an important one we want to add.
Okay,
and we feel that
I see that we have Caroline, but in reality is not Caroline for you on the screens. The former co-founder of Edibex, you were also in this market of unpaid, recovering money on unpaid transaction and open invoices. We've just heard about Recover and other startups. Can you say anything about how a company like Edibex is feeling PSD2? Any demands that you know about there? I know that you're no longer operationally involved. I'm looking at the here.
Yeah, that's my answer. I left 15 months ago, and I think they are not focusing on that aspect. But clearly, the collection was always a large issue. But with Edibex, it was done by a third party, done by the credit insurance. And just to tell you some confidential information, it was impossible to do worse. It was like zero.
Okay, well, that's impressive. Going to Johannes here, because when we're talking about helping others getting unpaid or late paid invoices paid, you are active in POM. You co-founded it. Tell us a little bit how do you feel and see this need at customer side?
Well, first of all, I just shared, it was an article from the Tate that talked about the cost of a direct debit that couldn't be collected. What we see it is that, and that's maybe a bit also the basis of the question just raised, how user-friendly it is already to do a payment initiation on the PSD2, and but the answer is clean. It is, well, not user-friendly at all. And what we try to do is take away the obstacles that people find or encounter in trying to initiate a payment. And for the moment, I see PSD2 as just a hell of a big obstacle in order to start the payment. So we are also looking into it, and we're hoping that things are going to improve. But for the moment, in terms of user experience, it's far below what a user experience is of a card payment transaction through Bancontact or Payconic at this moment. We're looking into it, of course, and we keep on following it up. But for the type of services that we are putting into the market at this moment, it's not relevant yet.
Okay, great. I'm going to pass to Patricia, because you have both the InsurTech view on this. Like, are they looking at it? And secondly, on the personal level, we are amongst friends and entrepreneurs here. You're looking for new opportunities. So anybody in your network, if you hear about a company looking for the talent that Patricia has, do think about her. So, but back to the question, Patricia, of how you see the InsurTech and the companies you've worked with embrace PSD2.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, Johannes, I had, let's say, the opportunity to use your POM because I had a fine on my son was speeding in my car, so I used the POM.
You shouldn't be paying for your son speeding. You're doing it all among their.
No.
And we don't have anything to do with the fines at all. So we're not the ones sending them.
That's it from his next monthly allowance, of course. But but the customer experience is splendid. When you then of course after you realize you need to pay the speeding ticket.
So you turn the speeding into a happy transaction moment. That's very nice, Johannes. Never thought of it.
Yeah, but anyway, as you know, banking is, let's say, 10 years ahead of digital transformation in the insurance industry. So now we see that little by little they are addressing the sales channels. You see there the possible rather some delicate relationship between the independent brokers network, if they have their own sales network. The online marketplaces are just beginning to launch in Belgium, and this big topic is indeed after open banking we have open insurance. And insurance companies, they also realize that API information could, of course, inform them a lot about spending in insurance products. The moment that you pay a premium, it is visible in the APIs. So they are just like beginning to explore what possibilities maybe, but it's still it's not mature at all. It's still very premature, and but they are looking in the possibilities how they could use API information to, let's say, reinforce their various sales channels. Yes. I don't hear you, Toon.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
And maybe he's not talking to us.
Could be.
I was talking to Xavier here, who's now telling me you're muted. So I'm sorry about that. So I'm also going to have to wrap it up for myself. So I leave you all amongst each other and remind you to raise your hand if you want to say something and to put it down if you're over. So see you next Thursday for the next session and continue this one. It's your platform, so just use it for as long as you can. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Toon.
Bye, Toon. Bye.
Bye.
Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Yes, but the wall is a bit cracking up, and last year has speed up a bit the digital transformation, but we'll see, slowly but surely. That's a bit the statement I make. Yeah.
Maybe there's also an interesting trend with the latest move between Revolut and Cover, because as you said, the wall is cracking for InsurTech, but I think also the fact that more fintechs are trying to think about embedded service, like adding insurances to their already existing fintech services, is also helping the insurance ecosystem to actually see the benefits of the communication between both worlds, actually. And this will certainly helps, as you said, thinking about how you provide insurance too, actually.
Yes, of course. I was relating it to the PSD2. You have open banking, open insurance, but the major trend that you see that is the embedded insurance, and that is exactly what covered us with Revolut, because they have these different, let's say, membership schemes, and the higher you pay their metal card, I think you have a lot of this embedded insurance, and that's exactly what Cover is providing. And you see also alternative distribution channels like IKEA in Switzerland. They are selling home insurance. You see, so there are these all other different models, business models that are emerging, and also insurance that is completely embedded. You buy a car and even you don't notice it anymore that your car insurance is included, like Tesla did with AXA. It's you buy a Tesla, it's insured, everything. It's all-inclusive pricing that you can ask if you want. So we see evolutions in insurance for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna wrap up as well. Nice to see you and talk to you guys. Hope next time will be still digital, but I do hope we can meet again live.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I think I'll have to leave you two guys, but really nice to have a chat with you. And as everybody already said, hopefully we will be able to see each other not remotely next time. So,
of course.
bye. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
You too. Bye. Salut Cédric. on se fait une petite réunion. Attends, Alice, tu peux nous laisser, s'il te plaît?
Je vais vous laisser. Non, mais en même temps, j'entends ce que vous dites. Hein. Oui, je suis en train de discuter avec la victime parce qu'on est en train de lancer un nouveau site internet sur lequel en fait les membres vont avoir une page à eux et sur laquelle vous allez pouvoir mettre des vidéos si vous avez envie et tout ça. C'est une page de blog, donc c'est le format. Et mais rajouter des photos et donc une vidéo aussi. Et on a pour le moment un deal assez intéressant si vous avez envie de faire la promotion de votre fintech. Les vidéos qui sont sorties dernièrement par rapport à Xavier présentait la fintech et l'état des lieux de la fintech sur les réseaux sociaux. Et donc en fait la première vidéo vous allez présenter votre société et on pourrait la reprendre et la mettre sur le site internet de Fintech Belgium, le nouveau site. Donc voilà, comme ça vous êtes au courant et c'est ce que j'étais en train d'expliquer à Peter et voilà, comme ça vous savez. Et Peter va certainement prendre contact avec toi aussi, Cédric, vu que on est en train de voir, on va organiser un événement sur l'accounting tech cette année et il faudrait voir un petit peu, peut-être soutenir Peter à définir le sujet, la date forte, les partenaires qui pourraient avoir quelque chose d'intéressant à annoncer ou voilà. Et puis essayer de monétiser le truc aussi. Évidemment, je te demande pas ça toi, Cédric, mais voilà, c'est qu'il faut pour pouvoir organiser ce type d'event, il nous faut un minimum de thunes et donc essayer de trouver peut-être un gros partenaire, exact ou autre, qui aurait de l'argent, enfin qui sont en train d'innover et essayer de les mettre aussi sur scène, les intégrer à ça. Voilà, c'est la démarche. Voilà.
Ouais, j'ai trop. Voilà. À la prochaine.
Merci beaucoup, Peter. Et merci tous les deux. Au revoir.
Allez, c'était chouette.
Oui. Merci beaucoup d'être resté jusqu'à la fin. C'est le meilleur.
T'as 5 minutes, Cédric, je peux t'appeler après? Ok, ben moi je vais rejoindre ma voiture, donc pas de
Mais
stress.
tu peux pas manger avec nous, Barbu?
Ah ok,
On va manger ensemble ici, on va commander un truc.
ça va. Ben, je t'appelle après alors le lunch. À tout le temps.
Ciao, ciao, à bientôt Cédric, merci encore. Merci. Ciao, ciao.